Kevin Carrico was once the baby of the Jacksonville City Council. He is now its leader, and he is facing a full-grown set of challenges. Here to talk about all of it is the Honorable Kevin Carrico. Good morning, Kevin. Thanks for being here.
Good morning. It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We are delighted you're here. Let's start with a little bit of a biographical dive. You, professionally, your background is in nonprofit work. You currently are with the Boys and Girls Club of Northeast Florida. You previously worked with the Clara White Mission. But before that, you were sort of raised in the service industry.
Well, yeah, it even goes before that with my dad being in the military, in the service. So we moved around every couple of years. That was my upbringing, being an Army brat. So there's a special fraternity of folks that have lived in that life and understand what that means. And I'm proud to be an Army brat and certainly proud of my dad for his years of service. But yeah, after he got out of the military, he became a club manager right here in Jacksonville at the old University Club downtown. And I started working for him in high school. Working weddings, working fine dining in the dining room, eventually hop behind the bar, learn how to mix drinks. And that was my first career path. So I was in hospitality management, country club management, all the way until probably my late 20s. And then I took a dive into the nonprofit world. I just had a tug on my heartstrings to do something a little more meaningful and impactful. And that's how I ended up at Clara White with as the vice president over there. And now 10 years at the Boys and Girls Club. So I can sit here and talk about that for 30 minutes, the Boys and Girls Club, the great work we do. But if you would allow me just to give a quick plug on the organization and kind of what we're up to. We have 59 locations here in Northeast Florida. We serve Alachua, Clay, St. John's, Duval, and Nassau County, after-school programs, summer programs for kids, really helping them reach their full potential. You've had some of our all-star youth on the show before, and they came out.
Yeah.
I was like a proud father watching those two young people just talk about their story, their journey, and their passion. So it's really my life's passion work is just giving back and helping people, and especially the youth, which will roll big time when we discuss kind of my priorities and what I want to see with this council and this city here, my year as president.
I'm curious, in addition to kind of starting in the service industry, and, there is a certain fraternity among people who've done that. It is a different kind of work, and it does give you a sort of bottom-up view sometimes of the world, and your place in it because you're working as a server. But, you also have studied things that I think some might surprise some people, given your political posture. You were an African-American studies minor.
Florida State University.
You worked for years at the Jacksonville Youth Sanctuary, now the Sanctuary on 8th Street. And of course, your job at Clara White Mission is working with the homeless. You now work with under-resourced kids. And you were actually a Democrat for a number of years before you switched parties. What would you say about your political identity, your political leanings, and how you ended up kind of where you are right now as a Republican?
Sure. It starts with my dad being in the military. I had a conversation with him one time when there was a presidential election. I asked him who he's voting for, and he said, when you serve in the military, you serve at the pleasure of the president. He's the commander in chief. So I don't actually vote because if I vote for this guy and the other guy wins, I still have to serve that person. So when he retired from the military, he registered to vote and is very active and when he being civically engaged. I was at Florida State University, freshly 18 years old, and you were registering to vote, and the Democrats were giving out free pizza. So, that's where I landed. My grandmother was Catholic, and my other grandmother worked for FEMA. So if there was any influence younger in life, it was probably them. But I realized that, that party just didn't align with what my ideals were and what my values were when I got a little older. Very personal story. My daughter now, who's 6 years old, she's a rainbow baby. I don't know if you know what that means. That means my ex-wife had a miscarriage before my daughter was born. And once you kind of hear that heartbeat and understand that life was there and then it was lost, due to just circumstances, really just awakened me and my conservative values on pro-life or pro-choice, or pro-life, sorry. But yeah, so that's a touching story. You brought that out of me earlier. I wonder where else we're going to go.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to hear about that. That is a devastating loss for anyone.
Yeah.
I will say my producer just popped in our chat here that it was Caleb and Nico who were Florida Youth of the Year and National Youth of the Year on representing the Boys and Girls Club, and they really were just extraordinary and impressive young men. We are talking to City Council President Kevin Carrico. If you'd like to join our conversation, you can give us a call at 904-549-2937. You can also email WJCT at, First Coast Connected at wjct.org. Losing my train of thought there. We've got a
That's
call.
both of us today. So you're a
Yeah,
professional, so
we
I feel better about it now.
I'll get in the swing of things. We've got a call from Yasmina in Arlington. Good morning, Yasmina. Go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thank you. Councilman Carrico, your leadership leaves a lot to be desired, and you mentioned pulling on your heartstrings and serving the community, but your relation to the Boys and Girls Club would have been directly impacted by 0138 with KHA funding, and I'm just curious why you weren't the council member who would have proposed the amendment to keeping KHA from being impacted. And I also feel like you're in cahoots with our board members and the different comments you make and how we're moving with this Office of General Counsel.
Thanks, Yasmina. I think referencing there the carve out that Raul Arias created for the Kids Hope Alliance when it came to basically reporting requirements for nonprofits that might be providing aid to immigrants or people who didn't have proper documentation. That bill was ultimately vetoed.
Yeah, fully aware and understand the question, the premise of it. So when I carry the Boys and Girls Club flag down the city hall, it's challenging sometimes because the Boys and Girls Club, long before I ever arrived, always has gotten dollars from back then the Jacksonville Children's Commission, now the Kids Hope Alliance. So it's a fine line for me to carry that flag and be the one out front leading on issues, and especially when there's going to be dollars appropriated to Kids Hope Alliance that could end up at the Boys and Girls Club. So I was happy that that amendment came forward and happy to support that amendment to carve the Kids Hope Alliance out. But for me to lead that charge and for me to be the one that says, hey, we need to do this, some would find the optics of that maybe just not necessarily the best position for me to be the one. So I was happy that the amendment came out, and I think it protected the kids. And I ultimately did vote for the bill. And as we all know, it was vetoed.
Got a call from Lenny in San Marco. Good morning, Lenny. Go ahead.
Hey, Mr. President, it's Lenny Curry. How you guys doing?
Hey, good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Curry, how are you?
I'm good. I just wanted to call and express my gratitude for your leadership, your fortitude, your clarity of conviction, and it's a breath of fresh air. Looking forward to this year, and thank you for looking out for taxpayers. And as you know, we cut the millage rate as I was leaving office, and I know you're trying to do that again. So just wanted to say thank you and keep the fortitude, man. Proud of you.
Awesome, man. Thanks for calling.
Thanks for checking in. Let's talk a little bit about taxes, because you have suggested, pending this review that the budget cycle is going through, that you would like to consider a possible rollback of ad valorem rates and provide some relief, you said, to the people in your district who you think are particularly hurting. District
Absolutely.
4, which is kind of the south side of Jacksonville. This is the kind of thing that I think people like to hear, but measurably might not provide a huge relief. I mean, the rate that the former mayor was just referencing was an eighth, I think, of a mill.
Eighth of a mill. Mm-hmm.
And that's, maybe $1 or $2 a month for the average taxpayer. Is it worth impacting the budget, to the tune of tens of millions of dollars for that kind of, very small savings?
Yeah, I think the taxpayers are stressed right now. They're burdened with inflation. And it sounds insignificant, but if we just continue to tax our citizens and spend every single dollar that we get, then we're never going to come to a place where we can actually take a hard look at our expenses. So the only way to give that taxpayer the relief and make sure we're fiscally responsible is just cut that millage. And an eighth of a millage, I believe, is about $12.5 million out of the budget, the $2.1 billion budget. It's not a lot of money coming out, but it's a signal to our taxpayers that we are conscious of their struggles and we are with them and support them. So it started out as exploratory, but now that I've had time to look through the budget, and I think that the Finance Committee will find some ways to trim back a little bit, and I would love to see that relief go to the taxpayers. Also, don't want to gloss over the fact that Mayor Curry called. I remember when I got in office, it was like I was young, I was in my 30s, and now I'm interacting with the mayor. He seemed like a celebrity then, and the fact that 5 years later I can call him a mentor and someone who I can trust to help me and guide me along the way. I just don't want to gloss over that. And I appreciate the call.
Do you lean on him a lot? Do you turn to him?
I turn to a lot of people, a lot of mentors, and he is someone that I do talk to probably once a week, and have always grown that relationship since he was the mayor. But I talk to a lot of people, stakeholders in the community. I talk to leaders that are in other industries, nonprofit leaders, friends, family. Anyone that'll help me guide it. It's a tough gig. I've only been in the role since July, and this phone starts ringing about 7:30 and doesn't really stop until 7:30 at night, and then your thought space, everything is just consumed with what can you do to move the needle forward and really make Jacksonville better. And we were talking about cutting taxes, and I think that's something that we owe to our citizens.
In terms of talking to people, I know in some recent interviews we've been asked about conversations with the mayor, and it sounds as though until just very recently, you really haven't ever met with the mayor much or talked to the mayor. That I would guess is going to change. Um, but why do you suppose it is during this past year where you've had a fair amount of kind of public disputes with the mayor's office? You haven't had those personal conversations with her.
Yeah, in the past, we've disagreed on a few issues, and both have talked about those issues since, and we kind of disagreed publicly, kind of through the media, and both agreed that that probably wasn't the best way going forward for us to handle things that we don't disagree on. And we're going to agree on a lot. We're going to agree on things that are going to move Jacksonville forward. We both are passionate about downtown. Uh, and I'm looking forward to continued meetings. So we have meetings scheduled every other Monday now. So every Monday before the council meeting. So we've met twice now in this council year, and we're going to continue that open dialogue. And
That seems
uh,
smart.
yeah, I made her a promise. I said, hey, if I'm going to go out and do anything stupid that upsets you, I'll be sure to shoot you a text first or let you know. She said, Kevin, I prefer you don't do anything stupid, but that's fair. If you want to give me a heads up, we can agree on that. And of course, football season's coming, so go Noles.
Right. Well, you guys are both
Yeah.
FSU grads, right? So you've got
Mhm.
that to bond over. You're both big Jags fans.
Yeah.
What else do you have in common with the mayor, and what do you suppose is like your biggest point of difference?
Well, she ran a nonprofit for a long time. The Donna is a nonprofit and helps raise money for breast cancer awareness, and that's been my career for the past 15, 16 years as a nonprofit leadership management. So just that desire to serve and desire to help and find a need and go out and solve the problem, not be afraid to raise money for people that need help. And our disagreements they tend to be along party lines, and the best way to solve problems and spend money, it tends to be different on different sides of the aisle. Just what we truly believe will answer the questions and help people. I think we want to get to the same place. It's just the way that we get there sometimes is a little different.
I was looking back at some interviews that you'd done where you were talking kind of about conflicts with the mayor, and one of them one of your points seemed to really circle around the idea of tension between the executive branch and the legislative branch, and you were, kind of emphasizing that exists, that's how it is. It ought to be there in some ways, and then specific to the Meridian Waste dispute, you had said to one news outlet, you said it's just about the division of power. I think it's just the administration thinks they can run the city like a dictatorship and forgetting about the legislative branch, which is here elected by the citizens as well. I'm curious, just given that statement, kind of what your take is on the current Congress and their seeming acquiescence to President Trump on so many issues. How strong should the legislative branch be?
Yeah, the legislative branch locally controls the laws, the regulations, and controls the finances for the city. It's the checks and balance system. So the executive branch looks at how they want to spend the dollars, and that executive branch is led by one person that's voted on by the city. And then the legislative branch is 19 people that were also voted on by the constituents. So it's a checks and balance system, and really comes down to taxpayer dollars at the end of the day. Obviously, policy, laws, regulations, things of that nature, our land use and zoning code, all those things, that falls to the legislative branch. It's similar to D.C. I don't spend a whole lot of time on national politics. I try to read the clippings and the headlines just so I can follow. But there's so much going on in Jacksonville. There's so much to know and understand to really have the impact that I want to have.
As a lawmaker, though, do you think that our congressional members are doing enough to kind of represent for that branch of government in D.C. right now?
Yeah, I think everybody's working together, and everyone is there's disagreements just like there are on the local level. But at the end of the day, we're serving the commander in chief on the executive branch, and the Congress has their duty as well, and all the work they do through committees and passing bills. It all has a harmony to work together.
We are talking to Council President Kevin Carrico. You can give us a call or email firstcoastconnect@wjct.org. We've got an email from Bill saying downtown Jacksonville and its surrounding older neighborhoods have many neglected historic buildings. Not all structures can or should be saved, but many significant properties deserve to avoid demolition by neglect. Do you have a plan to help preserve significant historic structures in our city?
Good question, Bill. So being passionate about downtown, yes, I do love the history of Jacksonville. I love some of the unique architecture that we have downtown. I've also been a part of an organization that had to rehab a historic building back when I was at Clara White Mission. It's called the Henry Landworth Veteran Villas now. It's right behind us. And I was the project manager on that. And it was a real learning experience to know the intricacies of the historic buildings and the costs associated with fixing them. So anytime that we can preserve a building, anytime that the resources will allow us to make one of those historic buildings come back to life, I think it's a beautiful thing. I really do. But at the end of the day, if something is crumbling and falling down, it's going to be a risk to safety of the constituents. Then sometimes there has to be tough decisions, and those buildings might need to come down. But if we can stay in the vein of downtown, that's one thing I'm excited about. We have this corridor now where the new stadium is going to be built, Stadium of the Future. That leads all the way down Bay Street in front of this building, all the way till you get to the UF campus that's going to be on the other side of downtown. And that's going to be groundbreaking and changing our footprint downtown, bringing those students in, bringing that University of Florida brand, even though it's not the brand I follow on Saturdays and my diploma is hung by. I'm always going to take a shot at the Gators when I can. But I love the idea of that campus. So connecting that campus on Bay Street and the opportunities that we have with some of the lots from the Riverfront Park that's going downtown. It's just been released that the Hard Rock Hotel.
Bite your tongue.
The Hard Rock Hotel.
Everyone's saying it's not going to be a casino. It's just going to be a Hard Rock Hotel and restaurant, right?
That's all that I know. Yeah, that's all that I know. But have that flagship there. Obviously, the Four Seasons is coming out of the ground. So if we continue this momentum of building attractions and building things that people will come to Jacksonville for tourism and come and stay downtown. The number one thing that people visit when they come to Jacksonville is not the beach, it's not the river, it's the St. John's Town Center. They come here to go shopping, and I think they can stay a few more days. They can get that shopping out of the way, and then go downtown and see some amazing growth. And then it starts with people as well, moving people downtown.
There's a lot of businesses on Bay Street that exist, that I'm sure are thrilled for some of these bigger tenants to move in and get going, but they probably also could use some support. What about all of those smaller businesses that are there right now trying to kind of hold it together on a stretch that has a lot of, gap teeth, really?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of empty space right along there.
Yeah, well, the DIA has done a good job at investing in that corridor already. There's a nightclub, a venue that has opened recently, Deck Alive, that has brought some major national acts and artists. And the folks that are behind that have got with the DIA, they're going to redo the Justice Pub and make an Irish pub right down there. So they've got some grants from DIA to help them and assist them with getting that up to par. And there's another concept for kind of a bakery speakeasy on the same corridor there that the same group is behind, and DIA has supported that. So we have the DIA. We've got a brand new executive director, Mr. Collin, who I believe started work yesterday from Baltimore. So he was hired to be the executive director of the DIA. So we've got a good board there. We've got a good program. So I think we just have to work together on what our visions are and what the downtown core needs. People is really the missing piece. We've got over 10,000, I think now. The goal forever was to get to 10,000
residents.
Yeah, residents, people that can live, work, play, shop right here downtown. There's a grocery store coming. We've got development on San Marco and the Brooklyn area. The old Times Union building, that's coming. The old brewery there on the South Bank by Mocha, it's slipping the name, River City Brewing Company. That's coming to be a beautiful multi-use development. So it's here. I don't think we're the city of renderings anymore. Right now, we're going to be the city of construction for a couple of years.
Do you have a sense of a residency number? I know the DIA has used 10,000 as a peg for kind of like, you hit this mark and there is a little bit of self-generating vibrancy. But what do you think is the number that it would take for downtown to feel like a downtown when you're walking around on a Friday afternoon? If
you wanted to look like, an Indianapolis or a Nashville or, one of those kind of competitive cities, and I would say you probably need at least double that.
Yeah. We've got a call from Tom on the west side. Good morning, Tom. Go ahead.
Good morning. I just wanted to say that I believe the city council needs to listen to all its voices, and in that I think Jimmy Peluso and Matt Carlucci need to be heard and be on committees. I think they serve an important check and balance within the city council and keep the city council from going too far or making mistakes. You need to hear all the voices, otherwise things just spin out of control.
Thanks, Tom. I mean, we should talk about that. So, for people who aren't familiar with kind of the background on that, you appointed Matt Carlucci and Jimmy Peluso to just one committee. The tradition is that all city council members are
Mhm.
appointed to two. And so a lot of people saw that as perhaps retribution because they've opposed you on a number of issues, or at the very least, trying to diminish their voice. And of course, since then, Jimmy Peluso had boycotted the initial meeting of TEU, which was the committee he was on, and you removed him from that entirely. So now he's not on any committees.
Yeah, that's right. When you look at going to battle, or we won't do a war analogy. How about a football analogy? When you get a new football coach in any community, college football, NFL football, that coach always brings people that he wants in the foxhole with him, his offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, people that you've worked with in your career and that share your similar vision. And, at a time like this, the city is on the cusp. We have to be intentional in what we do and what we want. And I want people that are going to be in the foxhole and be on those committees that are going to lead the city in the way that I envision that the city's going to go and come up with the results that I think are going to be the best. And so we have great committee leadership in place. We've got
What was it, retribution?
not retribution. It's just who do you want to work with? Who do you think is going to have your back and get things done? And I have the right as the president to appoint anyone to those committees. And so I appointed people that I thought were going to take care of business, and they didn't make the cut.
So you are probably like 57th city council president for the Jacksonville City Council. There have been a lot of contentious relationships
Yeah, I'm not the
between
first one.
right, and they have all managed previously to appoint representatives to at least two committees, recognizing that they serve a district, and that they have a constituency that needs a voice in committee decisions, which is where a lot of the big decisions are made.
Yeah, that's not accurate, though. There have been council presidents that have left people off committees and even took them away. I think the latest one would have been Anna Roche
Well,
and
I
her
think she
treatment of
didn't.
Bill Gulliford.
He said specifically he wasn't going to serve on any committees, and so she didn't appoint him to any. But that's a little different than someone wanting to serve, like Matt Carlucci or Jimmy Peluso, and then not giving them a committee assignment.
Yeah, I don't know if wanting to serve and Jimmy Peluso should match. I mean, he's the one that boycotted his only committee and decided not to show up for work. So
Fair enough. How
he
about Carlucci, though?
yeah, Carlucci has been appointed to the special committee on downtown. That was something that he wanted and something that I gave him. He's on one of the committees, and the committees are just one part. They're the first step in the legislative process. Every single council member comes to every single meeting and votes on every single bill. So I think the rhetoric of that the voices aren't being heard by them not being on committees. They can come to any committee, they can speak at any committee, and they will vote on every single bill that goes through the legislative process.
We have an email from Tyra on this subject. She says, I live in District 7. City Council Member Jimmy Peluso is my representative. You have given him one committee assignment versus, and as we said, none at this point. She says this undermines his influence and impact on the workings of the city, which then lessens the impact of citizens who live in District 7. So that would be her.
Right. Now, that constituent also has 5 at-large council members that serve at the pleasure of everyone in the city. So I don't want to take away from their role as an at-large member. So you've got 5 members represented that are at-large, and you've got your district member. And there's 5 committees, so your district is never really represented on all of the committees. But your at-large people will fill that gap for you, and Mr. Peluso still has a voice.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit more then about your relationship with Matt Carlucci, because there was that very tense meeting where you called the sergeant at arms
Mm-hmm.
to remove him from council, which also seemed like a pretty dramatic departure from sort of the way that council typically operates. I've not seen that in my experience where the sergeant at arms was
Sure.
summoned to remove a council member.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the meeting, he had become emotional and upset, and there was a point where I was trying to continue the meeting, and he started walking at me, and I'd rather not, stand up and go chest to chest with one of my colleagues. I think that would have been even a worse look. So I glanced over, I saw the sergeant at arms there, and just asked, "Hey, could you get him out of here? He's violating my space." And that's how we ended that, and we continued with the work of the meeting.
Do you regret the way you handled that at all?
Not at all.
Did you feel threatened by Matt Carlucci?
Did I think he was going to punch me? Probably not, but he was moving in my space, and we're in the middle of the meeting. So you have to use the tools that are given to you. And we have a sergeant at arms, and they're there to serve at the pleasure of the chairman. So at that point, I needed him to continue on his way.
Yeah. And so since then, how would you characterize your relationship with him?
With Matt, we don't speak that much, but I have a lot of respect for Matt and his career and everything that he's done to serve the city. So there's no ill will bad feelings there. But I'm probably not coming over for Sunday dinner.
Okay. I want to talk to you a little bit about your uh, interest in downtown. We talked a little bit about projects, that have been neglected. The Laura Street Trio. Hesitate to even bring it up because it is
Yeah,
always this perpetual.
a little listener fatigue on that one, huh?
I'm sure, and I'm sure that it's something that the city council is
It's very
equally tired
frustrating.
about
Yeah, it's very
talking
frustrating.
about. But it is, a central focus of the architecture and the preservation wishes of a lot
Yeah,
downtown, and you've been very involved in that as well. So, what's your forecast for that
sure.
3 buildings that?
I still have a lot of hope for that. As you know, I think it's very important. I call it the linchpin between the kind of commercial district of downtown and the rest of downtown. It's going to be right in the middle of that corridor I just talked about, going from the stadium to the UF grad campus. Laura Street's right in the middle. So some of the renderings and some of the plans that were to take place in that would have been just transformational with a boutique hotel, residences, retail, nice restaurant on the bottom. So those plans didn't come to fruition. The current owner wasn't able to close due to some liens and things like that he had on the property. I do hear that he has found another buyer and is back in the market trying to sell that because it's ultimately headed to foreclosure. Um, the city has a lien against it as well for the back fees that are owed to it. So it's complicated. I don't think anything happens soon, but I think something happens, and I probably won't be able to cut a ribbon or do anything to it while I'm president, certainly, but I will continue to follow it. And
Do you think it is going to be saved, that all 3 buildings?
I'm not sure about all three. I know there's been plans that to keep all three, and I've talked to some people that were structural engineers, and I think the bank is 100% safe and sturdy. I think one of the other buildings is good. I think the other one,
Which is the other?
I get them confused. There's one that's kind of skinnier and kind of looks like it maybe leans a little bit. They're just the cost of preserving that. So it's hard to pencil the deals when someone has to make money on it, right? It's not just sitting there as a museum. The city doesn't own it. So in order for a developer to be profitable, you have to look at the cost analysis and the ROI. So
Do you think the city will once again own it? I mean, the city did own it.
it will go to auction. I mean, I don't think the city wants to own it and be a developer. I wouldn't want to do that. There are plenty of people out in this universe that handle those kind of projects and get development done.
We're talking to City Council President Kevin Carrico. You can reach us at 904-549-2937 or First Coast Connect at wjct.org. We've got a call from Wells on the south side. Good morning, Wells. Go ahead.
Good morning, Ann. I have 2 questions for President Carrico. The first one is, why do you support and why have you supported the building of a medical examiner's office and a morgue that can hold 300 bodies in a predominantly aging African-American community? And would you support the repurposing of that morgue? My second question is, the council passed a resolution supporting the Zionist government of Israel. I want to know if this council would be willing to pass a resolution calling for the end of the genocide and the using food as weapon of mass destruction against the Palestinian people. Those are my 2 questions.
Thanks,
All right.
Wells. Can we take those in reverse order? Mostly
Sure.
because on the Israel issue, the council did pass this resolution declaring, quote, unequivocal support for Israel.
hmm
And, back then, the death toll in Gaza was about 1,000. It's now about 55,000. Do you think that the city council's support for Israel, the way that it's conducting that war, is still unequivocal?
My support for Israel hasn't wavered. Israel's always been an ally of the United States and a very important peace factor in that region, and so I don't waver on that support one bit. Um,
Would you be willing to denounce what Wells was saying, terming as genocide?
so the protesters have come down and asked for ceasefires and these things that the council get behind something like that. No, I wouldn't support a resolution for a ceasefire. I'm going to stick with my support for Israel.
In terms of the Brentwood
Mhm.
Medical Examiner's Office, that's been a source of a lot of
Yeah.
controversy. There is going to be, a morgue inside there, in addition to, other offices and functions of the Medical Examiner's Office. Um, it's a project well underway, if not complete, right?
hmm
But have you ever thought that perhaps that wasn't the best place if you had to do it again, um, for locating a medical examiner's office?
Sure. So I'll start with I've toured the old medical examiner's office, and it is
Grim.
yes, it's not a good place to go. It's dark, it's dated, I don't want to say it's unsanitary because there's still functions happening over there, but it's a rough place, and so we needed a new facility, and the land was found, under the previous administration. I think it was the first land use and zoning meeting that I chaired in this Deegan administration. So it would have been two plus years ago that we had to just vote on the simple rezoning, and a couple people came out and expressed some concern. So I deferred it and sent it back to the administration to work through and talk through best case scenario, worst case scenario, and what they wanted to do and what they needed the council to support. And the price tag on moving it, they had gone so far in the progress of it, and it just didn't add up. So it's there. It's on Gulf Fair. It's right by Idea Schools. I have a Boys and Girls Club blocked a couple blocks down the road on 25th and Boulevard. So I don't view that as a residential corridor. I view it as a commercial corridor. There's gas stations and old hotels and the old Gateway Malls just right up the road.
I mean, there are homes just right adjacent to it,
Yeah, it backs up to a neighborhood, but it's the beginning of a corridor. So that's the place it landed. The plane is landed. It's going to be open. If there are concerned citizens out there that are upset about it, then I have compassion for that. But sometimes government is about making tough decisions, and we need a medical examiner's office.
In terms of the protests that have been engendered at City Hall, specific to the Israel, Gaza offensive, and a lot of people representing for, the state of Palestine and, asking the council to get involved. I wonder if you regret, the original resolution for kind of engendering all of this. And I'm also curious because I know you've talked a little bit as leader about how you might tighten up council procedures a little bit, or maybe crack down a little bit more
Hmm.
on protesters at council meetings or decorum at council meetings.
Yeah, decorum is really important, and we're in a professional setting. We have family members and friends that watch the meetings. If my daughter's up on a Tuesday, they'll turn on channel 99, and she'll wave to daddy through the TV. So when you have people that come out, and for the most part, we haven't had a whole lot of this, but foul language is used, and attacks are thrown at members of the body. It doesn't really help anything. It doesn't serve anything. So I will be monitoring that as the president, and people have their freedom of speech, and I honor and cherish that as part of our Constitution. So we want them to come down and speak, but you got to speak with respect. Like we're not up there yelling back and throwing darts and insinuating some of these folks that tend to get emotional. They're passionate about it. It's part of expressing yourself. But when that expression turns into kind of disrespect or profanity, then that's where I'm going to draw the line as president. And
Do you think, though, that the council kind of brought some of that on itself by inserting itself into an international kind of forever war and taking a position on that? Because all of these protests, not all of these protests, but a great number of the people that are speaking at these meetings are speaking specifically in reaction to this council decision to weigh
that
in.
might have been an unintended consequence of supporting an ally of the United States, which again I'll stand by our support for that. So I don't think we saw that coming, that we would have 2 years of people coming down and passionately being upset about it. But for every one of those, there's another person that believes the same thing we did when we passed that resolution. I believe 18-1 to continue our support for this country and the nation of Israel.
We've got to wrap. I just would kind of ask you, I think a lot of management and leadership is sort of like based on how you parent. And I'm curious kind of like, what kind of parent are you? How do you think you'll be leading this body?
When you say parent, I'm going to look at my daughter, and that just makes me melt, because anytime anyone talks about her, like I live for that little angel. And so I give her all the love that she could ever need and support her and giving her all the tools she can to be successful. But that 6-year-old doesn't run my house. I do. So when there's lessons to be learned or there's punishments that need to happen, I do that with love as well. And I won't call it love with Jimmy, but we're friends outside of city council. We saw each other at an event, the week of, kind of this whole thing coming to the media, and we had a friendly talk and laughed at it even a little bit. And so that's an example of just kind of leading strong, not backing down, but still leading with love and compassion.
Well, Council President Kevin Carrico, we appreciate you being here today.
Sure
We hope
thing.
you come back again soon. Thanks
right.
for doing it.
All right. Thank you.